At some point after you've fallen asleep, it starts. A soft, rhythmic turning from the corner of the room, the wheel, moving in the dark. You half register it through the wall of sleep, and by the time you wake, it's silent again. The bedding has shifted. The food bowl is somehow emptier, and your hamster is curled in a tight ball, perfectly still, as if it never moved at all. But it moved. It moved more than you could possibly imagine, because while you were lying still in one bed, in one room, your hamster spent the night covering ground, real ground, the kind of distance that, measured against its body, would leave a human athlete on the floor. And here's the strange part. It isn't doing this because it's restless, or bored, or trapped. It's doing this because it cannot stop. Something far older than your hamster is pulling it onto that wheel, night after night, and it has almost nothing to do with the cage you put it in. Most owners assume the wheel is just exercise, a way to burn off energy, like a dog that needs a walk. But what's actually happening on that wheel between midnight and dawn is far more specific, far more ancient, and far stranger than most people realize. Tonight, while you sleep, your hamster will run a distance that, relative to its size, is greater than a human running a full marathon. It will do it in near total darkness, navigating by senses you don't have. And the deepest reason it runs is buried so far back in its biology that the same drive can be measured in wild animals that have never seen a cage in their lives. Welcome back to Hamster Minds. Subscribe before you go, because what you're about to learn is happening in your home every single night, completely invisible to you, and it will change the way you look at that wheel every morning. And stay until the end, because the final thing we cover isn't about distance at all. It's about a clock running inside your hamster's body that is older than the species itself. And once you understand it, the silence of that dark room will never feel empty again. Number 1. The moment the lights go out, a second life begins. For most of the day, your hamster is a disappointment as a pet. It's asleep, tucked into a nest, breathing slowly, ignoring you completely. You glance into the cage at 3 in the afternoon, and there's barely a sign of life. This is not laziness. It's biology. Hamsters are crepuscular, with a strong pull toward the night, built to be most active in the low light of dusk, dawn, and the dark hours between. Their eyes, their metabolism, their entire daily rhythm are tuned to a world that switches on exactly when yours switches off. So the hamster you know, the sleepy one, the slow one, the one that squints when you turn on the light, is only half the animal. The other half emerges when the room goes dark and quiet, when the house settles and you climb into bed. That's the shift change. That's when your hamster wakes into the version of itself it was actually designed to be. And the first thing it does, almost every night, is go to the wheel. It's worth sitting with what that means. The animal you think of as calm, contained, easily held in one hand, is leading a second life on the other side of your sleep. A life of motion and distance and purpose that you have almost never witnessed. The cage looks the same in the morning, but a night happened in there. A long one. Number 2. The distance your hamster actually covers. Here's the number that stops people. A pet hamster, on an ordinary night, can run somewhere in the range of 5 to 9 kilometers on its wheel. 9 kilometers, that's around 5.5 miles, is not a freak record. It's a figure researchers have documented as entirely normal for a healthy, active hamster, and some individuals push past it, clearing 10 kilometers before sunrise. Verify, keep 5 to 9 kilometers, up to 10 plus framing, well supported across sources including documented wheel revolution counts. Now hold that against the animal doing it. A Syrian hamster is roughly the length of your palm. A dwarf hamster is smaller still. For a creature that size to cover 9 kilometers in a single night is, relative to its body, a greater distance than a human being running a full marathon, and your hamster does it not once, not as a special event, but most nights of its life, and then again the next night, and the next. Verify, body length scaling. 9 kilometers for a 17 cm hamster works out to more body lengths than a marathon for a 1.7 m human, safe to phrase as marathon or beyond, relative to size. It does this on a body that burns energy at an astonishing rate. Small mammals run hot. Their metabolism races just to keep them alive, which means every kilometer on that wheel is paid for in fuel your hamster has to find, store, and replace. This is not idle spinning. This is an animal pouring real metabolic effort into the dark, night after night, on a wheel barely wider than your hand. And the obvious question is the one almost no owner asks. Not how far, but why? Why would an animal that's perfectly safe, perfectly fed, with a full bowl and a warm nest, choose to run the equivalent of a marathon in the middle of the night, and then do it again tomorrow? The answer isn't in your cage. It's in the desert. Number 3. The reason it can't stop is older than the cage. Your hamster's ancestors did not live in a tank on a shelf. The Syrian hamster comes from the dry grasslands and steppe edges of the Middle East, open, exposed country where food is scarce and scattered, where a single night's foraging might mean traveling a long way across hard ground to find enough seeds, roots, and grain to survive, and then carrying it all back to a burrow. That is the life your hamster is built for. Not a 6-square-foot cage, a territory, a range it has to patrol, search, and defend, covering real distance every single night, because standing still means going hungry. The legs, the heart, the endurance, the relentless drive to move, all of it was shaped by a world where movement was survival. You took the desert away. You did not take the instinct. So when your hamster steps onto the wheel, it isn't exercising in the way we mean the word. It's foraging. It's patrolling a territory that no longer exists, running the distance it was built to run, answering a call that the walls of the cage can't switch off. The wheel is the only place in its small world where that ancient drive has anywhere to go. And here's the part that genuinely surprises people. We tend to assume the strong nocturnal habit is the real hamster, that running at night is hardwired and fixed. But when researchers studied wild golden hamsters in their natural habitat, they found something unexpected. Out in the open, free animals shifted much of their activity toward the daylight edges of the day, rather than the deep night we see in captivity. Verify. Gatterman/Larimer-era field studies on wild golden hamsters. Wild activity skewed more diurnal/crepuscular than the strict lab nocturnality. In other words, part of the intense, deep night running you see may be shaped by living with us, by a world that only goes quiet and safe once the humans have gone to bed, which means the wheel at midnight is two things at once. It's an ancient foraging drive that no cage can erase, and it's your hamster finding the one stretch of the day that finally feels safe enough to run. Number 4. Proof it isn't the cage making it crazy. For a long time, people looked at a rodent running endlessly on a wheel and saw something a little sad. A captive animal, going nowhere, repeating the same motion for hours. Surely that's a sign of stress. A neurosis. The wheel as a symptom of a life that's too small. Then a pair of researchers in the Netherlands did something nobody had tried. They took running wheels out of the lab entirely and placed them outdoors, in nature, in a green urban area and in a quiet stretch of dunes, with night vision cameras watching to see what would happen. What happened is one of the most quietly astonishing findings in animal behavior. Wild, free-living animals, mice mostly, but also shrews and others, found the wheels and ran on them, voluntarily, with the whole open world available to them, no walls, nowhere they had to be. They climbed onto a wheel and ran, then left, then came back and ran again. Over roughly 3 years, the team logged hundreds of thousands of animal visits. One mouse ran for 18 minutes straight, and then came the detail that settles it. The researchers stopped putting food out to attract the animals. If the running was just a side effect of coming for a free meal, it should have dropped off. Instead, as a share of every visit, the running went up. The animals weren't showing up for food and happening to run. They were showing up to run. Verify. Meyer and Roberts, Proc. R. SOCB. 2014. Wild mice voluntarily wheel run in nature. Running as a fraction of visits rose after food removal. Study used mice, not hamsters. Frame as the shared rodent drive, not hamster-specific. These were not your hamster, but they belonged to the same family of small, ground-covering rodents, driven by the same deep machinery. And the conclusion reaches your hamster directly. Running on a wheel is not a captive animal breaking down. It is something a rodent's brain finds genuinely, intrinsically rewarding. The motion itself releasing the brain's own reward signals, the same way movement does in us. Your hamster doesn't run because it's trapped. Your hamster runs because, on some level, we're only beginning to understand Running feels like the thing it was made to do. There's something worth sitting with in that. The wheel you glance at in the dark, turning over and over in a small cage in a quiet room, looks like the loneliest object in the house. An animal going nowhere, all night, for no reason. It isn't. It's the one place where a body built for a desert it has never seen gets to do the single thing every fiber of it was shaped to do. The cage is small. What's running inside it is not. And your hamster, in the middle of the night, is more fully, completely itself than at any moment you've ever watched it. Number 5. The clock that nobody can see. So why this rhythm? Why the same hours, night after night, with the precision of something scheduled? Why does the wheel start at roughly the same time in the dark, even when nothing in the room has changed? Because your hamster is one of the most precisely clocked animals on Earth. And that is not a turn of phrase. The golden hamster became one of the foundational animals in the entire science of biological clocks. Their internal daily rhythm is so reliable, so sharply tuned, that researchers studying how living things keep time turn to hamsters again and again to understand the machinery. The master clock buried deep in the brain that tells the body when to wake, when to run, when to rest, even in total darkness, with no sunrise to go by. Verify golden hamster as a classic circadian rhythm model organism, well-established, central clock in the SCN. That clock is what's running the wheel, not the room, not the light switch you flipped. An internal timekeeper inherited across countless generations that holds the rhythm of dusk and dark and dawn inside the body itself, so faithfully that your hamster begins its night on schedule, whether you're home or away, whether the season has changed, whether the world outside the cage means anything to it at all. This is the part that reframes everything. When you hear that we'll turn after midnight, you are not hearing a bored pet killing time. You are hearing a clock, one that was set long before your hamster was born, long before this species lived alongside people, ticking out a rhythm older than the animal carrying it. The run is not restlessness. The run is your hamster keeping time with a world it still belongs to, in the dark, on a schedule written into its cells. And it keeps that time for you, whether you ever hear it or not. A note worth holding, gently. A healthy hamster running its nightly distance is doing exactly what it's built to do, and the kindest thing you can offer is the room to do it well. A properly large wheel with a solid running surface, a deep bed to dig in, places to forage and explore. If the running ever looks truly frantic, non-stop, with no breaks, no rest, paired with weight loss or bar biting, that's not the instinct working. That's the instinct with nowhere big enough to go. And it's worth a look at the setup and, if it continues, a vet check. The drive itself is beautiful. It just needs space. Resolution. So the next time you wake in the dark and hear that soft, rhythmic turning from the corner of the room, you'll know it isn't restlessness, and it isn't boredom, and it isn't a small animal trapped in a small life. It's a body built for open ground, running the distance it was made to run. It's a foraging drive older than the cage, older than the species' life beside us, finding the one place it can finally go. It's a clock that was set generations ago, keeping perfect time in the dark. By morning the wheel is still, the bowl is empty, and your hamster is curled up exactly as before, small, soft, asleep, looking like it never moved at all. But it ran a marathon last night. It runs one most nights. And now you know why it can't stop, and why you'd never want it to. Tell me in the comments. How late at night have you heard your hamsters will start up? And did you ever get up to watch? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.